is all catching hell in 2024. It's up for all of them. It don't matter if you Diddy or whoever you is. TGJ, any of them. All lies will be exposed. That's all.
Relationship, her friendship, her. You're making me use your word. her friendship, whatever, with Mr. Epstein was independent of me.
What if I told you that the most powerful people in fashion weren't just walking runways, they were walking tightropes over secrets? And what if the loudest comedian in Hollywood had already warned us this was coming? Because when Katt Williams said 2024 and beyond would be the years of exposure, people laughed. But nobody's laughing now. Especially not when the name Naomi Campbell keeps popping up in conversations nobody wants to have. Flight logs, elite circles, private islands, international mentorship. And then, suddenly, whispers about something called the Eye of Horus Island. Coincidence? Or are we watching a perfectly curated empire start to crack under the weight of its own mystery? Because here's the thing. In Hollywood, nobody is ever just standing next to the wrong people. Nobody is ever just visiting. And nobody, especially not a global icon, is ever completely unaware. So, what exactly did Katt Williams hint at? And why are certain names resurfacing right when old files are being reopened? Grab your popcorn, because this one gets uncomfortable. The moment Katt said, "It's up for all of them," people thought it was just another viral rant. But what if it wasn't? Because timing in Hollywood is never random. And when certain names start resurfacing at the same time old conversations come back to life, you pay attention. For decades, Naomi Campbell has been untouchable. Runways bowed. Designers worshipped. Presidents posed for photos. Billionaires hosted her. The fashion world didn't just accept her, it revolved around her. But power isn't just about who you are. It's about who you know. And more importantly, who knows you. When Jeffrey Epstein's network began unraveling publicly, the world started scanning photos like detectives in a Netflix documentary. Who attended what? Who flew where? Who stood next to whom? And suddenly, archived images didn't look so harmless anymore. Because proximity in elite circles is currency. And in those circles, introductions matter. Naomi has openly admitted she knew Epstein. She said she was introduced years ago. She said she stood next to hundreds of thousands of people in her career. Fair. That's believable. But here's where it gets uncomfortable. When you zoom out, the pattern starts looking crowded. High fashion events, exclusive charity galas, private gatherings, luxury villas, global travel. The same names overlapping in rooms the public never sees. And then there's the so-called Eye of Horus Island, a nickname that online forums have been whispering about for years. A symbol rooted in ancient mythology. Protection. Power. All-seeing awareness. Interesting choice of branding, right? Now pause. Is this proof of wrongdoing? No. But is it strange how often symbolism, secrecy, and status collide in the same orbit? Absolutely. Because when you move in billionaire circles, you're not just attending parties. You're entering ecosystems. Ecosystems where favors are exchanged quietly, where reputations are currency, where silence is more valuable than diamonds. And this is where Katt's words start echoing again. He didn't name names directly. He talked about gatekeepers. He talked about pipelines. He talked about people who smile publicly but move differently behind velvet ropes. And the fashion industry? That industry has always operated like its own country. Its own hierarchy. Its own rules. Models don't just get discovered. They get placed. They get introduced. They get mentored. And mentorship in elite environments can mean many things. Again, no accusations. But when investigators begin mapping global connections and East Africa suddenly becomes a point of discussion in larger conversations, eyebrows go up. Why? Because Naomi has strong ties to Kenya. She's been honored there. She's been positioned as an ambassador. She's publicly expressed love for the region. That's not a crime. But when public files mention interest in expanding influence in modeling markets across Africa during similar timelines, people connect dots. Maybe unfairly. Maybe not. And that's the tension. Because the internet doesn't need proof anymore. It needs patterns. And once a pattern narrative starts trending, it spreads faster than wildfire. Now add another layer. Naomi has long defended herself against past controversies, temper issues, lawsuits, industry feuds. She's never pretended to be perfect. She's called herself a work in progress. But critics argue something else. They say influence comes with responsibility. If you're in the room, do you see more than you say? If you're that powerful, do you notice things others miss?
Like, do you know him from any other thing?
No.
Naomi Campbell?
Yes, I do know Naomi. And I knew her before I met Mr. Epstein and the former President Clinton.
Do you know whether Mr. Epstein separately knew Ms. Campbell?
I think he probably met her through me. That, I imagine.
And so, for those three, Mr. Tucker, Mr. Spacey, and Ms. Campbell, did they ever travel to any of Mr. Epstein's properties, the island or New Mexico?
Not Mr. Tucker, well, not to my knowledge, Mr. Tucker or Mr. Spacey. Naomi Campbell may have.
To where?
She may have gone, well, she certainly, well, I believe she visited him in Palm Beach, and I believe she may have gone to the island, and she may have gone to see his house in...
Or is Hollywood really just one giant blur of champagne glasses and flashing cameras where nobody knows anything? That's the question people are asking. And it's the question Katt keeps circling back to. Selective memory. That phrase alone makes executives nervous. Because when multiple celebrities claim they don't remember certain events, the public doesn't hear innocence. They hear coordination. Now, is that fair? That depends on who you ask. But here's what makes this story explosive. It's not about proving guilt. It's about perception. And perception, in today's digital world, can dismantle an empire overnight. So the real mystery isn't just about an island. It's about awareness. What did people know? When did they know it? And why does it feel like every time a new wave of scrutiny hits Hollywood, the same circle of elite names keeps floating to the surface? That's not an accusation. That's a pattern observation. And patterns are what start movements. And if Katt Williams was right about one thing, it's that the era of quiet connections might be over. And when silence breaks, it rarely whispers. And just when you think the story can't get any more layered, the internet does what the internet does best. It starts digging. Old interviews resurface. Archived photos reappear. Event guest lists get dissected like crime scene evidence. People zoom in on backgrounds, body language, who's standing next to who. It's like a digital courtroom with Wi-Fi. And guess what keeps trending? Proximity. Because in elite culture, proximity is power. And power always leaves a trail. Anonymous forum threads started claiming that certain private gatherings weren't just fashion soirees, they were networking hubs for future influence. No proof, just whispers. But whispers in 2026 spread faster than headlines. Then came the so-called insider accounts. One anonymous source, allegedly someone who once worked around luxury event planning, claimed that certain islands and villas were known in elite circles as invitation-only ecosystems. According to this source, you don't get invited unless someone vouches for you. And if someone vouches for you, they trust you. Trust you with what? That's where speculation explodes. Another anonymous comment circulating online claimed that East African modeling pipelines became a hot topic in certain elite investment circles years ago. Again, no official documents presented publicly, just claims. But the timing? That's what people can't stop talking about. Because while Naomi was publicly embracing her ambassador role in Kenya, critics online were asking, was the modeling expansion purely business, or was it part of a larger social web? Dangerous question. But viral questions don't ask for permission. Lavish parties in coastal towns. Private jets landing quietly. Exclusive beachfront estates hosting global figures. The optics alone fuel conspiracy threads for weeks. And then there's the money. People online began speculating about luxury renovations, mysterious property acquisitions, symbolic architecture inspired by ancient myth. The Eye of Horus, nickname, didn't come from nowhere. It came from online observers who noticed design themes tied to protection, secrecy, power. Symbolism means nothing legally, but symbolically, it sets imaginations on fire. And here's where public reaction splits into two camps. Camp 1 says, "This is ridiculous. She's a global icon. She's moved in elite circles for decades. Of course her name overlaps with powerful people." Camp 2 says, "That's exactly the point. Because in Hollywood, the same dozen names somehow orbit every major scandal. Different decade. Same VIP list." Social media polls started popping up. Do you think celebrities know more than they admit? The majority vote? Let's just say skepticism is trending. Clips of Katt Williams recirculated again, especially the parts where he talks about gatekeepers. Not criminals, not masterminds. Gatekeepers. The ones who introduce. The ones who connect. The ones who make the call. And suddenly the narrative isn't about one island. It's about networks. Because networks are harder to trace, harder to prove, harder to dismantle. But once the public starts seeing them, they can't unsee them. And whether fair or not, Naomi's name is now being spoken in the same breath as questions people are no longer afraid to ask. Not accusations, questions. And sometimes questions are louder than answers.
This is a direct character assassination. I've always said that I'm not a saint, that I am a work in progress, but I will not be held hostage by my past. What he's done is indefensible. And when I heard of what he'd done, it sickened me to my stomach, just like everybody else. Because I've had my fair predators, and thank God that I had good people around me that protected me from this. I mean, right now I stand with the victims. I can't, they're scarred for life. For life. I've rubbed shoulders with hundreds of thousands of people.
And here's where things shift from whispers to pressure. Because once a narrative escapes the internet and starts brushing against mainstream headlines, the temperature changes. Suddenly, PR teams go quiet. Statements get polished. Interviews become shorter. And public appearances? Carefully curated. Now, has Naomi been charged with anything related to these online theories? No. But in the court of public opinion, silence can feel louder than denial. That's what makes this moment different. Because people aren't just asking, was she there? They're asking, what did she know? And that question, that specific question, is the one that makes entire industries uncomfortable. You see, in elite culture, awareness is currency. You don't survive decades at the top by being clueless. You survive by reading rooms before you walk into them. So critics argue, if questionable behavior was happening around certain figures in certain circles, is it believable that nobody noticed? Defenders fire back instantly. They say proximity doesn't equal participation. They say guilt by association is lazy. They say powerful women are always scrutinized harder. And they're not wrong. But here's why the story keeps growing. Because every time new documents surface in unrelated investigations, every time another celebrity claims they don't remember, every time another connection overlaps on a timeline, it reinforces a pattern narrative. And pattern narratives are dangerous. Not because they prove anything, but because they plant doubt. And doubt spreads faster than facts. Now, legal experts online have weighed in too, not accusing but observing. They point out that investigations into elite networks often move slowly. Financial audits, international jurisdictions, layers of shell connections. Sometimes nothing happens. Sometimes everything happens quietly. And that uncertainty, that's fuel. Meanwhile, public trust in celebrity culture is at an all-time low. Audiences don't idolize the way they used to. They investigate. They screenshot. They archive. They cross-reference. So even if there's no courtroom drama tomorrow, the reputational ripple effect is already happening. Brand partnerships become cautious. Sponsors monitor comment sections. Luxury fashion houses read the room. Because whether the rumors are fair or not, association optics matter. And that brings us back to Katt. When he talked about upheaval, he didn't promise handcuffs. He promised exposure. Exposure doesn't always mean prison. Sometimes it means scrutiny. Sometimes it means the public looking at old photos with new eyes. Sometimes it means a legacy being debated in comment sections instead of celebrated on red carpets. And that might be the real shift we're witnessing. Not a legal explosion, but a perception earthquake. The kind that doesn't knock buildings down overnight, but cracks the foundation slowly. And once the foundation cracks, even the most iconic empires have to answer questions they never expected to hear out loud. And the loudest question echoing right now: is this all coincidence? Or are we finally watching the velvet curtain pull back, inch by inch? So now I have to ask you, are we looking at coincidence? Or are we watching a system slowly unravel in real time? Because here's what makes this uncomfortable. Nobody is saying there's a courtroom verdict. Nobody is waving around confirmed indictments. But what we are seeing is a pattern of names, circles, and silence that keeps resurfacing every time another layer of elite culture gets questioned. And when Katt Williams warned that certain gatekeepers would eventually be exposed, people laughed. Are they still laughing? Or are they suddenly very quiet? And what about Naomi Campbell? Is she just another global icon caught in the crossfire of internet speculation? Or is there more to these overlapping timelines than we're being told? That's not an accusation. That's a question. And in 2026, questions are louder than ever. So, I want to hear from you. Do you think Hollywood elites really don't know what happens in their own circles? Do you believe proximity is just coincidence? Or do you think the era of selective memory is finally ending? Drop your thoughts in the comments, but keep it smart. If you made it this far, you already know this conversation is bigger than one island, bigger than one celebrity, bigger than one headline. Like this video if you believe the truth always surfaces. Subscribe if you're ready for more deep dives into the stories they hope you scroll past. Because if this is just the beginning, you don't want to miss what comes next.